So I can see Kathy's hit the record button already, and I'm going to run through a few things. Now, at the end of this session, Kathy, you might need to correct me here. There is a quiz, but it may just be associated with how many lollies appear. Not sure if there are actual questions. I can't remember. But anyway, you do have your safe system assessment underway, hopefully. And I am going to provide an opportunity for anybody to ask any questions associated with their safe system assessment. I thank those who have already got in contact via email or phone to clarify things, to ask, how do I do this minor intersection down the road? Is that included? So we're already getting some of those questions coming in, which is good. So anybody can email, can call and get that clarification. But anybody who does have any questions now, happy to answer them live. And it's probably something that others may be questioning as well. So Kathy, do you want to fill me in there? Is there a quiz at the end of this one?
There is a quiz and it is 10 questions.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. It's good.
Jeez, we don't let people off easy, do we?
No, we don't. But they're if you've got questions about the assignment, now is a good time. Yep, you can type them in, or we can unmute you and you can talk live too if you'd like. The assignment is due next Wednesday, so you've hopefully everyone has had a chance to maybe get out and do your site visit. But in terms of writing it up and that sort of thing, no, I made it due next Friday, a whole week. Geez, that's good. Okay. All right, we can talk live.
Hello, who have we got there?
Hi, this is Nicole from the Townsville office.
Hi, Nicole.
Hey, just got a question about how to assess the proposed treatment that we've been given, and whether or not the primary and supporting treatments that we need to document are to be included in the proposed treatment that we've been given, and that's our only treatment option that we assess, or do we assess the existing case, that proposed treatment as it is, and then assess another option with primary and supporting treatments?
Great question, Nicole. And I obviously didn't explain this one quite well enough in the briefing, because you're not the first person to seek that clarification. So thanks for jumping on and asking the question. So what you're assigned to do is a matrix and a score of the existing road environment. Then you do a matrix and a scoring of what they are proposing, if they build exactly what they've designed or planned, right? And then they're the only matrices you do. The primary and supporting are simply things that you suggest this project team look into to make it better, right? So you can say anything. This is your freedom to say, well, if you actually looked at a roundabout, or you looked at some raised crossing, or raised this area, or added signals, or improved skid resistance, altered the line marking, whatever it is, and you just list these out. You don't need to do anything with those. Because in a real safe system assessment, what happens is they'll give you the design, and you do the existing conditions and the design, and then you say, here's a whole lot of things that would make this better, but it's back to them to make the decisions on what they can and they can't incorporate in their project. Now, in practice, they may at a later date come back to you and say, thank you for all of those ideas. Listen, we couldn't do these first three, but we could do those other ones, and we could do these. And we've altered our design. Can you just score that again? And then you can do a third assessment. But for your assignment, we just want the existing conditions, the design or the plan that we've given you as it is, and then just dot point some ideas that could be altered in what they're proposing, changed in their proposal but you don't need to score those.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's perfect. Thanks, Ken, for clearing that up. That's all for me.
Thanks, Nicole. Thank you for speaking up and asking the question. So if you can see there, wonderful example of how you can interact there. If anybody else would like to, they can put their hand up, or they can just type it in there. So
We've got hands up everywhere now, Ken. So we're going to have a chat with Doug.
G'day, Doug. Hello, Doug. Doug's unmuted himself, but we can't quite hear him.
I'll ask another question in the meantime, if Doug can make that work, or maybe it's a comment. Yeah.
Just check. I was just going to say to Doug, maybe just check your microphone settings, that it's on computer or the like. Sometimes that's in Zoom, and you click on the microphone bit and see how you go there, Doug. Otherwise, we might have to have it typed in, unfortunately. Ask the other question, please, Kathy, while we see if Doug can.
Just a comment here saying, currently trialling SSAs on a project to allow a more quantitative defendable safety metric during the multi-criteria assessment in comparing options. Unfortunately, it's over 15 kilometres long with close to 20 intersections.
Yeah. Okay, so that we've certainly done quite a number of safe system assessments that have been utilised in the multi-criteria assessment phase, and they have been some long projects. And one of our engineers, Chris Hall, who's he basically does all the matrices, and then he uses a weighted average to come out with a final score. So certainly it sounds like you're on the right track in getting that quantification. There is a bit of process speeding up that can be done, especially when you have sort of homogeneous intersections along the way, because you're really using the same matrix, tweaking here and there, and you can sort of start to churn them out. So you can set up a spreadsheet with tabs and just be copying and running them through. So so good luck with that. And of course, actually, I might even pull up one just to show you some. Well, it's slightly different. I was going to say I can show you some examples of some longer projects and the safe system assessments if we get time. But that's good. The other thing I did mean to say with Andrew's presentation and the system Andrew's TMR sort of got up and running, don't feel overwhelmed and the need to use that immediately, right? It's complicated and it's a bit tricky, and in the end, like any tool, you need to know the principles, because you need to go, well, that actually the tool's pulling data that is just wrong, or it's not accounting for this part, so you're going to adjust it. But you are certainly at the moment, able to do safe system assessments on your project just from a first principles easy perspective, and start to maybe play around with the tool if you want to start to get to learn it. But don't feel compelled that you have to use that at this stage.
Doug has come back with his question on the chat. So his example is a major intersection. However, there is a small intersection nearby that might contribute to the safety risk of that location. Is it okay to include the smaller intersection as part of the potential options to reduce risk? Okay,
that's a really good question. Thank you, Doug. And sorry I can't get you on the microphone working. But we don't want to pollute data, exposure data, if that makes sense. So the examples I could sort of give you to that is if you've got a big main intersection and it's got 6,000 vehicles, 10,000 vehicles on one leg and 5,000 vehicles on the other leg, and it's churning along. And then the next intersection down's got 50 vehicles a day, but has some more higher risk issues. If you take those higher risk issues like likelihood factors and account them with the larger volume, it'll skew that score. So what I prefer you to do is quarantine out that other intersection on its own, really, or you could have the option to make it an other. But I think you'd quarantine that out on its own if you're really interested in doing that, and it would have its own matrix. Because you just got to be careful not to say, Well, that's a really highly likely, it's highly likely to have a crash there, and the severity will be high. But, there's almost, no people using it compared to another one over intersection in the same sort of vicinity of the scope that has this huge volume of traffic with a medium likelihood. And you've got to let the system spit out which score it wants. So hopefully that makes sense. Now, for your assignment, I'm happy for you to just quarantine off the major intersection and sort of define the scope of your assessment within those bounds, so you don't have to, do too many matrices. We just want proof that you can sort of do this process. I don't want you to spend your weekends spitting out matrices.
I think we're good at the moment, Ken.
Okay, so some other stuff coming in sort of behind the scenes about administrative stuff. So I'm just going to drop these people off. But please, if you do want to, if you did want to talk, ask a question live, pop your hand up, and happy to do that. Otherwise, keep your questions coming in. I do have a few slides to get through, a bit about the process, a bit about accreditation of safe system assessors and the like. So I'm going to go through those. I've got a couple of chances, I think, to give out prizes, but okay, I'm just going to share my screen here. Hopefully that's working. I'll swap that over. Give us a pen here. All right. So last session, you're into it. You're doing well. I just want to talk now a little bit. So we know how to do a safe system assessment now. You're doing one. You understand, the mechanics of it, how it works, how to calculate things, how to allocate stuff, and the principles, obviously, of the safe system. We're all on the same page there. So we're ticking along beautifully. So this one, this last module for this course is about understanding some of the benefits that have been realised from safe system assessments in the past, and also sort of the process of a safe system assessment within an infrastructure project, and the difference between a safe system assessment and a road safety audit, which I've touched on, but I'll just sort of add a bit more to it. Okay, the first thing I want to talk about is what is the benefit of doing these safe system assessments. I mean, I think you're all getting a feel for, well, it's a good way to identify some risk and to display things, and maybe to help with some optioneering. If we look right at the end, like, what are we actually going to get from a saving in death and serious injury on the road network by including this process in our projects? I thought a great way to do this is for me to just show you an independent evaluation of 35 safe system assessments on major projects, like big projects. So this was in Victoria, but we're talking town bypass projects, ring road style projects, big grade separated interchange projects. These are big projects. And what happened was that Blair Turner from ARB was engaged to use a predictive crash model to try to quantify the crashes over a 20-year period under their scenarios. And so this is how the evaluation went. So we've got on the y-axis here fatal serious injury crashes. And we've got four sort of bars to represent that. So the first one here is if no project was to happen. So there's no investment, and everybody uses the existing roads as they are, and it takes into account growth in traffic volumes and the like. This is how many crashes would happen in these scope of work areas where they don't actually do any work in this hypothetical scenario. So you see there that their prediction model said if nothing is done here, you'll have 7,900 serious injuries and 344 fatalities over the next 20 years in these areas. So quite a bit of trauma, you know, as I say, some pretty big projects, pretty long areas, some pretty heavily populated areas as well. So that's the baseline, really. Now, so the designs that were produced for these, they came out of the big design houses, churning out the designs, and these designs showed a reduction in this trauma down to 6,700 serious injuries and 286 fatalities in those areas of the design that was produced. Then the safe system assessment was done. And the safe system assessment produced some recommendations, obviously, as you're going to do. When you see the designs, you're going to score their design, and then you're going to make these recommendations. What it showed is that the high safe system alignment recommendation. So this is their sort of primary things that they're doing, and they're supporting things, and all the supporting things, and these primary recommendations. If the project was to take all of those on, it would reduce the serious injuries down to 3,890 serious injuries and 167 fatalities in these areas. But the project team sort of got all of that, and they said, well, we can't do these first couple. We can do these supporting ones, and we can do this third one. And so this is what we've decided we're going to do. And they altered their design, their reference design, and that's what they spat out. And that was, in the end, predicted at 5,298 serious injuries, 227 fatalities. Okay, so this tells me a lot of, it tells a real story to me, and I'll just briefly take you through it. The first thing it tells me is the difference between that and that. Says that the big design houses are churning out designs, and they improve road safety. They generally improve road safety. Okay, now they're following the standards and the guidelines, and they're just doing what they usually do, and there's an improvement. No doubt that these projects have a lot of other values, like increased improvements in travel time, and improvements in freight efficiency, maybe have other spin-off benefits. But in terms of road safety, they have a benefit in terms of reduced serious injuries and fatalities. This difference here, this is sort of what can be achieved. But the difference here, so this is what the safe system assessment team have said, you should do this and this and this. This difference is sort of like the one that says, well, could be a range of things. Could be politically unacceptable, community pushback, cultural heritage issues mean you can't, acquire that, do that. It could be a dollar thing, can't afford to do that within our project. Could just be a cultural thing. We don't like that. We don't like doing that. That's not how we do it. All of that sort of stuff. But the difference between this line and this line, that is our immediate, just straight away benefit of a safe system assessment, going through that safe system assessment process, right? That's just taking the designs, running them through the process, coming up with some ideas, handing it back, and they go, yeah, you know what, we can do that. We can do that. We can do that. We can do that. And it's going to have that immediate benefit. So if you ever need to justify doing safe system assessments, this is your justification. Yeah. So the next thing is, how do we alter this? well, we alter this, it's hard, but this is changing a culture. This is changing people's attitudes to different treatments. It's changing the funding, getting more funding for these things. It's educating designers and people sort of managing these projects and pushing them through about the opportunities with these different treatments and different ways to look at things. So that one's going to continual work. The thing that I hope you're questioning here is, hang on a second, what's going on here? This is our high safe system aligned thing. Why aren't we getting zero? Like, isn't that the whole point of the safe system, trying to achieve zero death and serious injury? Well, this is like the fact that the prediction model is, is genuine. It's a genuine prediction model. So what it's actually taking into account is everything. So it's saying we are going to have high speeders, we're going to have motorcyclists, we're going to have drug-affected road users, and the infrastructure that you're suggesting is great and really helps, but it's not at this stage enough to eliminate death and serious injury in all of these ways that that we see out on the road network at this stage. Right? And so what this says to me is a couple of things. Number one, it says we need to continue to innovate with our infrastructure solutions. We need to look at why are we still having this residual crash, and what can we alter? How can we address motorcycle crashes on some of these? How can we address super high-end speeders or people intentionally speeding through residential areas and the like, and can we alter them? So there's one about innovation and doing things differently. The second one is that this really reinforces that it's not going to be infrastructure alone that gets us to these zero or very, very small numbers of death and serious injury. It's going to be the vehicles as well, people, enforcement, and everything. So, it's a whole system. This has predominantly been looking at the infrastructure. So we've got a lot of work to do, but geez, we can get some massive gains, can't we, if we really just use what we've currently got, and we have a bit of cultural push for change. But even without that, we've got this big benefit that can be realized here. The other thing I should mention is, at this stage here, so this is somewhere within here, in the original design process, I think 33 of the 35 projects in this evaluation were subject to a road safety audit. So the design was produced, it was audited, it was handed back, and that was the one that then got safe system assessed. So, because people often see this and they go, well, I'm sure that would have happened with the road safety audit process anyway. And you go, well, actually, no, the road safety audit process may have contributed to some of this, getting a bit of a drop there. So I think that's a pretty powerful little graph available. There is the research report behind that, which is public. I presented it with Blair Turner at the conference a couple of years back. So he did it. We were providing a lot of the safe system assessments amongst other consultancies as well. So I think it's a really interesting, powerful tool. Anybody got any questions on this?
And not at the minute, Ken. We might just give everyone a moment to take that in.
Okay, well, that's all right. I'll keep moving on. Just a couple of, just jump in, Kathy, anytime, any questions.
Okay, I'll jump in now.
Okay.
Is there any planned monitoring of these sites?
Of these ones? Yeah, so most of them are sort of coming near their, well, I should say, sorry. a lot of these projects took multiple years to sort of build and get, their detailed design and things. So some of them are still in construction, some of them are finished, but they're not sort of in their 5-year period where you can start to analyze crashes and the like to validate some of this. But that'll be happening, I'm sure. And also, regardless of sort of analyzing what actually happens, you're still going to need to utilize some predictive modeling, because you need to be able to say, well, if that project hadn't happened, what would have happened? If they'd built the original design, what would have happened? This one you can actually just get the numbers for, and then you'd still need to use some sort of predictive model to try and spit out what could have been achieved. So, yeah.
Can you tell us what some of the factors that influence the adopted by the project versus the high safe system assessment?
Yeah. So, great question. So, the things we were seeing. So I'm just going to clear my slide so it's a bit easier to read. So we're really talking here about, okay, the safe system assessment suggested something, and the project said, well, we're going to do some of that. We can't do it all. And the real ones, so the ones that were adopted quite readily were often things like continuous barrier systems. So maybe the project opted for like minimum clear zones, but the safe system assessment said, actually, you'll get far better benefit if you do continuous barrier systems along the road instead of the clear zones. So those things were adopted. Where it often came to a challenge was minor side roads, and the safe system assessment sort of recommending either closing those roads and making people go around to the grade separated interchanges, or recommending roundabouts or acceleration lanes at those minor intersections. So that was sort of one. Another one that was not accepted in quite a few of them were our large signalised intersections, and the safe system assessment basically was saying you need to lower speeds through these, and some options are to do a raised safety platform, to do a signalised roundabout, or to grade separate, or the like. And then there were also options to do things like lower speed limits, these are supporting ones, lower speed limits, red light speed cameras, and these sorts of things. So most of the time they opted at these lower order supporting treatments at these large signalised intersections. They didn't want to change the form because it was sort of countering their traffic modelling and the benefits they were going to get for that in some circumstances there, So there was a bit of a conflict a lot of the time. So that was a big one that often didn't get adopted. So that was a change there. Some of the speed limit ones were not adopted. Sometimes it was a commitment in that project that, we will build this and we will return the speed limit to 100 kilometers per hour or whatever it was. And so they said, well, we can't do that. So there are a few off the top of my head that weren't accepted. This is just one project, was some recommendations for some underrun protection for motorcycle safety, which the project team decided they didn't want to do. They didn't feel it was a good investment. So that's the kind of stuff.
Thanks, Ken. I think you can carry on.
Okay. How are we going on time? Oh, yeah, beautiful. So just a couple of dot points here, a few dot points. Safe system assessment benefits, a great way to determine projects' alignment with safe system principles. I think you've seen that. And it's a good methodology to compare project options or project design options. So great way when you get, you're in your optioneering phase and you go, we've got 4 options on the table here, and you can do those safe system assessments, you can get scores, you can see areas where projects are better and worse in terms of different road user types, different crash types. Great way to obviously move projects closer to those safe system objectives of eliminating death and serious injury. Good method to assist planners, designers, and project managers to move the safe system approach from theory to practice. And I think that's probably its best application, because there's people are generally on board with the safe system at a philosophical theory level. Like, you know, let's improve road safety. Nobody should be killed or seriously injured. All of this sort of stuff, and it's great at a theoretical level. And the real challenge comes at our end, the practitioner end, of trying to actually put this on the ground, and what does it mean? And so I just love the fact this tool does a really sort of moves us forward in actually taking these theoretical aspirations, which, you know, ministers and chief executives love signing off this sort of strategy, principles level stuff. But how do we put that on the ground? And safe system assessments are a great tool for that. And it's a good basis for planning of future road designs and infrastructure. So let's get into a bit of the process guidance. And this question sort of came up earlier, but when is it best to do a safe system assessment, and do you need to do it multiple times at every stage? So if you look at sort of the stages of an infrastructure project here in grey: concept, draft, detail, design, build the thing, and have it open and live to traffic and general operations of that road going forward. The safe system assessment is really great in these early stages: options, concepts, drafts. Then safe system assessment, once you've got a detailed design set, it's not the best tool to use. We've tried that. It just, I mean, it's provided some value, but the reality is that project's gone. It's going to get built pretty close to what they've done the detailed design on. We've done safe system assessments on, you know, your 500-page design set, which is all, you know, completed and really basically ready to put out to tender. And when you come back and your recommendations in the safe system assessment say, well, your intersection forms should be changed. You know, we think that, you know, you should do raised intersections or roundabouts, and they've got, you know, signalisers. The odds of them changing that are minuscule. It's too far gone. Those debates need to happen back up here, those inputs. So this is where road safety audits, I think, are a better tool. The audit sort of more picking some of the details of the project, tweaking things here and there, making those sort of small, minute, detailed changes, which is really, you know, important to do still. Don't get me wrong. And post-construction audits, traffic management audits, all of those things are appropriate, open to traffic. And then existing conditions, well, you could do safe system assessments in there as well of existing road networks to identify areas of risk. You could do road safety audits as well. You could use some of the existing tools like ANRAM, IRAP, or the like. So lots of options once you've got a road operating and live to traffic.
Ken, a question here.
Yep.
Great diagram. Any thoughts on looking to apply or consider the safe system principles to policy strategy? For example, policies to offer free tow of stationary vehicles from high-speed, high-volume motorway shoulders in high-risk areas.
Well, the safe system assessment methodology has been designed to be quite adaptable, and you should be able to utilize the methodology to assess something like that. And it's been used for some varied projects out of the sort of traditional mold. It's been looked at for program-wide initiatives. It's been used for sort of remote communities, so covering a whole lot of area. So in theory, absolutely, it should be able to be utilized for that. It kind of is a risk assessment methodology in its own right. So you know, could you risk assess that? Yes. So could you use this tool as your framework for risk assessment? Yes, you could. It would need a little bit of thinking, but yeah, absolutely, it could be done. Is that it, Kathy?
Yep, that's it for now. Thank you.
Yeah, just a little table here that was produced to sort of show the difference between road safety audits and safe system assessments. Now there's a little bit, you know, depends who does the audit and how they're doing it and which jurisdiction you're in. But in general, we've got both audits and safe system assessments identify issues that impact the likelihood of crashes. Yeah, they both do that well. The severity of crashes, I'm going to say sometimes for road safety audits, but definitely always for safe system assessments, you're forced to do that. The reason I say sometimes for road safety audits is that I just see a lot of road safety audits that ignore the severity of the incident that is expected to occur. So again, I just use the high-speed traffic signals, for example. The audit is rightly looking at all of these likelihood factors, but not questioning the speed of red light runners and those, that make those intentional decisions or mistakes to run the red light. And so there is sort of embedded in auditing, your likelihood and severity, but it's just almost once you're into this scenario where someone's breaking a road rule, often in an audit, it seems to be ignored as a severity aspect. And exposure is not really taken into account in its own discrete element in a road safety audit. It is in a safe system assessment. It's really in a road safety audit, it's just embedded in your likelihood, really. Recommendations to improve road safety outcomes. Yep, they both do that, absolutely. And consider all road users, and they both do that quite well. Focuses on fatal and serious injury crashes only. That's safe system assessment. Road safety audits will be broader, and they'll look at other injury crashes, minor property damage, and have that ability to integrate those lower order minor injuries and factor those in. A safe system assessment doesn't really get too much into that. In practical reality, we do a bit of it, but looking into safer vehicles, safe system assessment, safer people. I would say sometimes for audits. I mean, those of you who are auditors, you're thinking often about, oh, well, that's a pub on the corner. I wonder if they come out of there and what happens, or as a school, how do they behave around that school? So sometimes it's taken into account. The safe system assessment has those dedicated questions. Same with things like maintenance and post-crash care. There's a little bit of that in these, but definitely part of safe system assessments. Recommendations to redesign the project. Yeah, so safe system assessments are about fundamental changes if it's needed. Or as some of you probably know, road safety audit, you shouldn't be redesigning the project or suggesting major alterations to it. I mean, in the sense that it says it in the Australia guide. Your job is not to redesign this project. You just identify some issues, and you might make a few little helpful recommendations, but that's not your primary role. Encourage innovative designs to improve harm minimization. There is, again, some audits can be very helpful in this, but there is a little bit of a push often that audits seem to hamper innovation because they're just picking all these minor risks, where a safe system assessment is just set up in this really clean, clear way to just show what benefits you're going to get from it in terms of the speed reduction and the like. So we do find that audits have quite a few audits in the past have hampered innovation that will have really big road safety benefits, but there's been minor, either non-conformances with standards or guidelines or things like that sort of flag and Yeah. The other thing is the versatility of a safe system assessment can be done at a program level, could be done on, different programs like the tow away stuff. What's the exposure to those crashes, the likelihood, the severity, and it's very versatile. So the process really goes, this is for an infrastructure project mainly, that the client determines, are you going to do a full or a rapid safe system assessment? Now, I think you guys are using it called a light. I think that's what Andrew said, light. So safe system assessment type, full or light. I'm going to show you the difference between the two shortly. The assessment team is selected by usually the designer, the client, project manager, and they say, right, we have this safe system assessment done. Now it might be an internal TMR group that does it. It might be a consultant that puts together a team and comes in and does this independent assessment. There's some sort of commencement meeting and then exchange of all of this information. What's the scope of the project? What's happening? What are the designs? What's the difference between these two? What's your, aim speed limits? Who's using the road? What's the movement in place categorization? You're building that picture of the project. Then you get out on site as the safe system assessment team and you look at the site, you understand how it's functioning, how it's operating, you build that picture in your mind, and you complete the safe system assessment matrix for the existing conditions and then any design options you give. You consider any of those other elements of the safe system through those questions that are pre-populated into the Austroads guide. You identify treatments to improve the alignment with safe system principles. So you take their design, you score it, you say, hey, if you did this, 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 and this, it would really improve your alignment with safe system principles. And you write that all up into a report utilizing the templates available to you. So Andrew showed you your templates that are available, so you can utilize those, the Queensland ones. They're very much the same as the ones you're using currently for your assignment. The TMRs based those off Victoria, and Victoria based them off some of Safe System Solutions' original reports anyway. So they're all running in the same direction. But just download the one out of that e-drive or whatever it was, and you can utilize that. And then it goes back to the project team and the designer, and there's your information, there's your ideas, there's some suggestions, and they make any changes. And then, amend the project and incorporate any changes. Now, at some point, they may say, I'm going to amend the design, and we just like that scored again. So that would then sort of come back to here. You do another matrix, and then it'd come back to here. If there are any further improvements that could happen, then you might update the report just to reflect this one last new finalized treatment option. And it would flow down. I like doing that last step. I like saying to a client, well, there's our safe system assessment report, got your scoring, scored your design, we've made some recommendations, give that back to the designers, work with the designers, see what you can change, and then shoot us through that final design, and we'll just do one last assessment. Because the reason I like that is you get this nice graph to show your director and your chief executive and others, where it sort of says, this was the existing conditions. This was our original design, which was, going to improve things. But we had the safe system assessment done, and it brought our score down to here. And that just sort of tells a nice story in my mind to show that you are doing everything you can to get the best alignment with safe system principles possible, as it is your organizational policy requirement. Okay, I'll pause there for questions. And I don't know, do we want to stretch, break, coffee, fill up water break? Kathy, what do you think?
Yeah, I think so. That's a good idea, Ken. We don't have any questions at the minute, so maybe we'll have a 2-minute break, and then any questions that anyone has can come through. Otherwise, yeah, a bit of a stretch.
Okay, we'll give a couple of minutes then.
Thanks.
Shortly. Any questions arising there? I can probably look myself actually here. Okay, nothing new there. Right. So hopefully you've even got yourself a nice coffee or something there. I just want to point out a few things that are available from other jurisdictions, or how other jurisdictions are doing a few things, and what Queensland's up to. You've already seen from Andrew there the tools being developed by Queensland. So Victoria's got a page from their safe system engineering area within government, and it's got the guidelines, templates that they have. Yours are available in your eDrive. It'd be good to get those on the TMR website so that your consultants can use them, but I'm sure you can provide those to consultants and the like. And the Victorian one has this register of recommended safe system assessors. So what they've done is said, we'll provide a list to industry, to our regions, to our major projects on who they recommend as safe system assessors. They've decided to go with, recommended safe system assessment, not accredited or anything like that, which is interesting terminology. But anyway, the way you get on this is to do a course of some description like this. And this is their sort of identified, recognized course, but any one that covers the same content that they approve. But this is the one at the moment. You need to gain first-hand experience doing safe system assessments, and then submit a safe system assessment for them to review. And if they deem it's of the quality that they expect, that you understand the principles and the process, and that you're going to be pushing things along in the right direction, they put you onto the list. And the list is just a PDF, and it just sort of looks like this, and it's got a big list of people and their contact details of those who are sort of safe system assessors. The South Australians have gone down a similar approach. So they've got a list again. This is they need to see that you've done this course, and then they publish a similar list. So you just got to email the form to Natasha there, and you get put onto the list. And TMR, as I said, has it written into your organizational road safety policy that safe system assessments must be done. Pretty big step, good reasoning to do it. And at the moment, Queensland doesn't have a register, a list as such. So the completion of this course and the certificate that you hold and gain when you successfully finish off the course, and Kathy will tell you what needs to be finalised before you successfully are able to get that certificate. Then you can call yourself a safe system assessor because there is no specific register, and you have something to show that you've been through the process. You've been, you've proven your competency through the quizzes, tests, and assignments, and you get a report card and a certificate. So you will be, some of Queensland's most experienced safe system assessors too. There's probably maybe 100 others who know the process and are applying it and have had the training. And you've got a handful of consultants out there that are skilled in this. Not a huge amount, and I think that's something that we're going to be trying to encourage, is building a sort of army of support for safe system assessments for all your massive amounts of infrastructure work that's happening. Because I know you're all flat out. And there's a really huge advantage in you understanding the process and what to expect and what the output should be and looking like. But it's just going to, I think, come down to a resource thing and you having the time to actually do these. So I think we need to train up an army of support for yourselves. And so we'll continue to do that. We may be asking for your help to point us to some of the key consultants that you might be using for this stuff to ensure that they're trained up and understand and are able to assist you. But we'll be in contact about that. Now, there's these, I talked about sort of light safe system assessments and full safe system assessments. And at the moment, your policy just says you've got to do it for everything. Now, I can respect that sort of broad overarching policy, but I think you need to have a little bit of common sense about this. Yeah, I mean, if you do, I don't know, if you're doing shoulder sealing over a kilometre, do we need a full-blown safe system assessment? Probably not going to tell you a huge amount, is it? But if you're doing, some, new signalisation of an intersection or something like that, yeah, then I think we can see the value, like say, system would have. So other jurisdictions, and I'm just showing this as an example, like Victoria, for example, sort of does it by dollar value, 2 million, under 2 million, 2 to 5 million, 5 million, above 5 million. And then the 2 million sort of gets the light safe system assessment if it's been determined that's going to be something that should be done. So there's a bit of freedom down that end. Up the other end here, above 5 million, no question. Just you have to do a full safe system assessment. You could only do a rapid as a supplementary assessment. So that's when I talked about going back and redoing the matrix and re-updating the report. Then you can use the rapid approach. And there's 2 to 5 million. It's sort of encouraged that it's a full safe system assessment, but maybe a rapid could be an option for very low risk projects, maybe like the shoulder sealing one, if it's many kilometers. But it's all the same, and you go, well, this full blown process, is it value for money? So I think that something like that is probably a good approach to ensure that this isn't just added red tape to projects, that we target this at where it's going to get value, where we're going to get big meaty change. You don't want to just add processes to major projects. There's enough processes through those things. We just got to keep it at the ones that add value. And before I pause shortly to take any questions or comments, I just want to touch on what is generally seen as a full safe system assessment or a light, as you are calling it. Others call it a rapid, but they have commencement meetings, context, workshop, site inspection, all the matrices that you produce, all those other elements of the safe system pillars and the questions that are in the Ostrodes and the templates. It suggests changes. You do the full recording, which you just download the full report template and changes, and you can have that feedback loop as well, and any changes to the design. So that's the full process. What then gets sort of removed when you go into a light is you don't necessarily need to do workshops. Now, it is sort of still optional in the full one, but that's one that goes. The site inspection can be removed. Now, I still like to do a site inspection even for a light or a rapid, but it's not sort of mandated. It's something, the idea is that it could be done a bit quicker at desktop level, looking at the design, looking at existing conditions from Street View and things. Now, I just feel, I don't know, maybe it's just me. I love getting out to the site to see it, to feel it, to understand what's going on. But that's one that's sort of been possibly removed there. The consideration of other elements have been removed. So you don't have to go through and answer those other questions about the vehicles, the people, the post-crash care and all of that, and document all of that. And obviously you do a light report, not a full safe system assessment report. But apart from that, it's about the same. I sort of say my rule of thumb is sort of 60 to 70% of the effort is the light compared to the full. So it's still, it's not like you're, swapping a 2-week exercise for a 1-day exercise there, but it's a couple of days to do a full safe system assessment with your site inspection, you're writing up and you're documenting and everything like that. And, you can probably knock off half a day of that with going the light version, depending on the project, obviously. If it's, big 15 kilometers of duplication, it's a longer process. If it's, some line marking changes, well, I'd question why you're doing a full safe system assessment on it, but maybe it is what you want to do. And then it's a quicker process. Questions before I just cover off some final road environment?
No questions at the moment, Ken.
Okay. Well, I mean, the reason I want to do this final little exercise of just going through a series of road environments and just briefly talking about how we can get better alignment with safe system principles is because we've asked you to do a safe system assessment as this training on one specific road environment. And, when we finish the course and you submit an awesome safe system assessment report and finish all your quizzes, we're going to pat you on the back and hand you a certificate and say, off you go do lots of safe system assessments. And you can be doing safe system assessments on any road environment. So we just want to briefly touch on a raft of road environments, road stereotypes, and just talk about some of the features that you might be recommending in your safe system assessment report to elevate them in terms of alignment with safe system principles. So the road environments we've sort of generally categorized here are residential, strip shopping centres, mixed-use arterials, low-volume rural roads, high-volume rural roads, high-volume outer suburban arterial roads, major urban freeways, and major rural highways. Okay, so here we go. We've got a residential street. It's got an arterial road down the end here. See, there's pedestrians, parked cars. It's a default 50 km/h speed environment. Why don't we get you to just type in a few ideas? What would you possibly recommend as a safe system assessor in your report? So, maybe you were just asked to do existing conditions and make some recommendations on how we could get better alignment with safe system principles. And I've got one that I've just jotting down here. And the first, if anybody writes in the same as me, now you don't know much of the context of this and things like that. Also, maybe tell me if it's going to influence exposure, likelihood, or severity. Okay, I've seen a couple come in already. Thank you. Some good ideas. I'll give you a second here, just as other stuff comes in. Thanks, everybody who's jotting stuff in. Some good stuff coming in. Thank you. All right. Well, we got some really good ideas come in there. I like them all. Nobody quite put exactly the sort of one that I jotted down. Not to say mine's the best, and you would have needed to know a whole lot more context, but I had jotted down. I'm just seeing that these last ones coming in aren't the same. I'd said, could we close the road? Could we stop it having access from the arterial road? Potentially. You need to know a lot of context to be able to say that with any confidence, though, wouldn't you? But we are going to give then a prize for the first person that came in with a one talking about trying to get speeds down. So Lucy's going to get a prize. Kathy, please jot that down. So a number of people talking about how do we get vehicle speeds down, and that's really appropriate in these areas. We're going one way or another get vehicle speeds down. So it could be local area traffic management and some wonderful traffic management LATM features that people are suggesting, speed humps, raised platforms, different features like that to address the likelihood and severity of crashes. We had a number of people have talked about the car parking. Can we remove car parking, open up sight lines and the like? And I'm always a little bit cautious about that. I think you're right that decreases the likelihood because it opens up sight lines to pedestrians crossing and the like. But you've got to be careful that it doesn't make for a wider carriageway with higher speed. So when you do it, you've got to supplement with some local area traffic management, some other features to slow vehicles down. A few people quite interested with these power lines. I'm not as concerned about it, but maybe others have more knowledge of some of the challenges that might face and raising those. But I suppose that would be a likelihood factor if you think the trucks might hit that. So yeah, good stuff. And I think that all of you are really thinking along the right lines here about what we want to do. We want to get those speeds down because it's not a major through corridor, so protecting those vulnerable road users. Similar with these sorts of environments. I mean, this is sort of strip shopping centre, vibrant area with lots of pedestrians, cyclists, and there are vehicles going through this area. This is Bondi Junction in Sydney. Incredibly, at the time I was out there inspecting, it's 50 km/h speed limit through here, and I was like, bloody hell. Certainly the report I did, I made some very strong recommendations to make this a very low speed environment. It's obviously a place for people. And yeah, we're really talking here about this could be shared zone, but you want vehicles so slow through these sorts of areas. I mean, you can see the exposure of pedestrian crashes. This is actually the entry into the one of the entries into the train station and the shopping centre, and there's pubs and clubs and all sorts of stuff going on. So lowering the speeds through here, raised platforms, shared zones, but it should be a very, very slow environment. These get a little bit trickier now. What I call a mixed-use arterial. Mixed-use arterial is the road where really you get the priority for everything high. So this road, Oxford Street in Sydney, is sort of public transport priority, traffic priority, high pedestrian activity area. It's, I think, a cycle route as well. Sure, cyclists must go in the bus lane. So you sort of, saying everything's a priority. And what we can do about these areas, and I'm just going to sort of move through these a little bit quickly to give Kathy a bit of time at the end to explain what needs to be finished off. We really have to recognize the vulnerability of road users, start to try to minimize the severity of crashes. A bit like that exercise we already did with the artistic impressions of it. But, you know, slowing speed at conflict points, special conflict points, I think you can utilize these areas as local area traffic management as well. So raised platforms across these pedestrian crossings. You can even sort of utilize your bus stop facility there. You could do separator, and the bus maybe isn't a raised area, or it's got a speed cushion or something like that. And then you sort of have a raised bit in the middle there. You know, there's ways to redesign this so vehicles are going slower at these conflict points, but it also slows them down from any sort of fast, direct, straight run down this road. And also variable speed limits, things like rest on red, which is where you're late at night, your signals rest on red or dwell on red, as opposed to dwelling on green. So vehicles don't get a free, fast run through these areas where there's, you know, intoxicated pedestrians, lots of people, staggering around onto the road and the like. So that's got that, you know, feel of this area is high risk. You might want to provide separated bike facilities, maybe refuge areas for pedestrians, which will reduce the likelihood of crashes. Remember, not the exposure, because exposure is all about the numbers of pedestrians crossing. You could start to look at barriers and fences to direct pedestrians to safer crossing points. It's a real balance in that one about trying to keep whatever sort of place value you've got. But in some circumstances, certainly it could direct them. You want to be doing a little bit of detailed thinking about pedestrian desire lines and making sure pedestrians aren't going to walk on the road because you block them from getting to where they want. Mark's got a question here about what is rest on red, or dwell on red. Sorry, I sort of glossed over it, but it's usually a really good treatment. So essentially, you alter your traffic signal phasing. So on Friday night and Saturday night, maybe from like 8 p.m. till 5 a.m., or any time that you've got, you know, high risk of intoxicated pedestrians or the like, your signals, their resting position is a red light. Like this pedestrian crossing would, if nobody's triggered it, it would be a green light, wouldn't it? Well, the rest on red is it's a red light for traffic until the vehicle approaches and triggers the loops, and then it'll drop to green, and then it'll go back to red. And it slows all vehicles going through these areas, and it makes it, you know, essentially a safer place for pedestrians. Now, it's been trialled in Australia a few times. It's done a bit in the UK. It's the ones in Australia have been trialled on signalised intersections. And really the sort of your classic here, now I'm just using this as a bit of a whiteboard. You know, you've got a pub on this corner, and you've got some nightclub on this corner, and I don't know, you've got the 24-hour KFC on this corner. Whoa, what did I do there? And you've got, I don't know, something exciting here, the kebab shop. And, you know, the area is general, and you've got, you know, your arterial road. And actually, the places that it's been done have like a bypass. You know, it's not the freight route, but this is sort of, you know, gets car traffic. And then, and Friday night, Saturday night, and this is just chaos. And you've got people wandering out there and running across the road, and, you know, fights breaking out, and, you know, it's just general. So why are we trying to pump traffic through there as our pro? We should be making people go slow. And it can also often redirect some people if they're trying to go through town. Maybe they go out and they go around town rather than going through, because they know they'll get a series of red lights. existing infrastructure, change your PROM, your programming of your signals, and it's good.
Sorry to interrupt, but I've got a snippet which I've just popped into Moodle on Dwell on Red. So I've just popped that little reference in there for people.
That's exactly what I was going to say, Kathy. I think we've got a safe system snippet on that one that we could share. So yeah, step ahead of me.
Now, did you cover off the question just on the previous one about have you seen shared zones implemented successfully?
I have not covered that off. I have seen them fairly successfully implemented. I think Bendigo does them fairly well. I think there's a few bits of Melbourne City Council that are okay. I mean, generally, your shared zone, I talk a bit more about this in the road safety audit course that we run. It's got to not look like a road. I mean, that's the design guidance for a shared zone. Make it not look like a road, and then you've got a pretty good shared zone. And for me, like if a driver enters a shared zone and goes, should I even be driving here? That's a good shared zone. That's the key. And so you want things like, you don't line mark it like a road. If there's parking, you make your parking in sort of staggered, not like, all lined up. You change the surface significantly. Bendigo's good because it's got some fountains, right? You're like, oh my God, there's a fountain right here. Water jetting up. Should I even be driving here? Now we're into a good shared zone because you go real slow and wondering those sorts of things. Oh, okay. So Dwell on Red, popular one. I have lots of debates with traffic operations people about Dwell on Red. Propose it a lot. And they do some modelling in certain scenarios and say, oh, this is going to impact on. I'm like, why are they driving? Like, why are we giving that any priority at those times of the evening? It's just, it doesn't make any sense. Anyway. These roads are going to be really hard ones. So if you're asked to do a safe system assessment on these sorts of low volume rural roads, and in Queensland you've got just hundreds of thousands of kilometres of this sort of stuff from local government roads, state managed roads, and they're much lesser, it's lesser standard of infrastructure than this as well, and they're high speed, and it's a huge challenge. It's really a massive challenge. The simplistic answer is that we need to get speeds down on these roads. The practical reality of that is harsh, because we know that the public are not up for that, and we know that people are unlikely to obey if we sort of like speed limit reductions on these roads. We know with some of the distances that need to be travelled that actually will impact on travel times. Urban areas, reductions in speed limits generally don't make stuff all difference in travel time. I mean, your congestion, your lights, your traffic signals are far more influential than the actual speed limit on travel times. But out in these areas, and you're traveling hundreds of kilometres, well, we're into some actual differences. So this is where I sort of say, well, I think we need to sort of think about that and think bigger picture about how all of that happens. And for these, you can, look to do some of that, but really a lot of the likelihood reducing factors are going to be big in these road environments. So those will be things like sealed shoulders, audio tactile edge line, RRPMs, good signs and guideposts, maybe wide center lines, maybe narrowing down the lanes, all these likelihood factors. And we can get those in, and we can do them cheaply and fairly easily, and they do a good job. We want to look at some severity factors associated with the higher risk locations, so barrier systems and the like. And ideally, you do it throughout continuous barrier systems, but the dollars associated with that is huge. So you're going to targeted back to some very specific high-risk areas. And then intersections, obviously, are another high-risk area, so you may slow some vehicles down through the intersections and the like. So they're a challenging scenario. The methodology works just as well through this, and you will see that without, altering speeds, we can't get very low scores, but the low volume will help out in your lower scores. And it's one we're just going to have to continue to work on, and maybe other elements of the system will be an opportunity to make these better aligned with safe system principles.
Ken, some comments, questions coming in here. Have you got any technical guidance on narrowing lanes to reduce speed?
Yes, I do. To reduce speed. Yeah. So there's some research. We did another safe system snippet on lane width and crash outcomes, and there is optimal lane width, but it's more of an urban area style one. But pop that up anyway, Kathy, if you can find it. And I'll have a think about the specific guidance on lane width and speed, or the research.
All right, I'll jot that one down for you for later. This is a nonsensical question. Some projects we plan have up to 30 design horizons. In these situations, a corridor may evolve from, say, a local street to a movement corridor. The SSA looks at the eventual ultimate option and not how it transitions from the base to the ultimate. Is it comparing apples versus oranges? Should safe system assessments then be introduced, examined, and how staging may occur?
Yeah, so it's not a nonsensical question, so it's a very sensible question. But the way you do it is you do safe system assessments at predicted or at time periods into the future. So, like, you'll do a safe system assessment for the existing conditions, and then that gives you your score, and you can do a graph of that. You do it for the design at year 1 or 0, as soon as built. But you could do a 20-year one, and then what you would do is you'd do a 20-year prediction on existing conditions, so your volumes would go up, and you do a 20-year prediction on future, and that can take into account changes in the state of the function of the road, the whatever's massive new developments, opening up a new business park or whatever it is, and you can assess that as a comparative option in your 20-year or your 30-year or your 40-year or your 10-year, whatever you want to do. You can just compare. And that way you can compare apples with apples, because that's an apple and that's an apple, and that's an orange and that's an orange. That makes sense.
Yes, it does. How can we encourage councils to develop people areas away from the major roads in their planning schemes, particularly in areas where a bypass cannot be created?
That's great. Strategic planning question, isn't it? There's an Austroads document called Safe System in the Planning Context. It sets out some pretty basic principles around that sort of stuff. It's not a bad document, but I'm not sure it gives you direct, how do you alter them? I'm not sure I have great answers for that. It's good. You're probably going to have a say in some of the planning schemes, getting in there and, being clear with some of those planning schemes and the objectives and how they're produced is probably the best lobbying option at this stage. I don't know whether, we did play around with some safe system assessments on planning schemes at one point in the developer guidelines. wasn't really the most successful clear-cut project. I'm not sure that helps a huge amount. Not sure I'm providing the best guidance there. Maybe others have got good ideas on that. Probably one worth chatting to lots of people about. Okay, just going to keep ticking along. Maybe we could share that Austroads document, actually, Kathy. You make a note of that too. I'll dig that out. High volume rural roads. It doesn't look too high volume, this one. There's no vehicles, but that was when we could get out to the road to take a photo. But yeah, when you've got your volumes go up, this is where we're going to start to address the severity of the crashes as well in order to keep high speed. So you're going to be putting barrier systems down the middle of the road, on the outside of the road, maybe 2+1 systems and the like. Yes, there's a lot of road network to cover, but if we want to keep the speeds high where the volumes are high, you know how the scoring works now. If you've got high volume, high-ish volume, you know, just addressing likelihood ain't going to cut it. Got to start hitting up that severity of crash outcome, and really long routes like this, barriers will be your only way to do that if you want to keep speeds high. And then, you know, if you do have central barrier systems, you can utilize your intersections as nice turnaround opportunities, because anybody sort of coming out of their properties, a nice place to turn and go back. Or you can look at, you know, ways to reduce speed through intersections, reduce likelihood of crashes and severity of crashes if they do occur. So maybe the side road activated speed zones, obviously doing the normal things we do to improve the likelihood. So good sight lines, lighting, turn lanes and the like. But yeah, thinking about that severity as well. And our high volume outer suburban arterials, well, when they've been identified as a major traffic route and traffic is priority, then it's about trying to restrict vulnerable users accessing the road. So you certainly don't want to have things like bike lanes on high-speed arterial roads, dedicated bike facilities off the road. You'd actually be doing more restricting of pedestrians in all possible ways. But at your intersections, you're going to need to manage speeds between vehicle crashes, but also at the points where pedestrians may be crossing. You've got to expect people are going to run the red lights, try to work out ways to accommodate that and have it not result in death or serious injury. And major freeways, urban motorways, we're talking about, well, these roads traditionally operate really quite well aligned with safe system principles. They've got separated flow, they've got no nasty right angle intersections. Things operate pretty well when they're free flowing. When they're absolutely stuffed, completely saturated, broke down, they operate pretty well from a safe system perspective as well, because all the crashes are minor, scrapes, rear end, minor, and the injuries are very low. It's as the freeway flow breaks down is where we see the sort of non-aligned safe system times. And that's because you've got the speed, but then you've also got the turbulence and the like. So what we tend to, what gets us better alignment with safe system principles in these environments is the management of the motorway. So freeway management systems, so ramp metering, systems to proactively reduce the speed as you see the freeway is starting to get to a point of breaking down, and you proactively reduce speed limits, warn of congestion ahead, and you're really sort of trying to reduce the likelihood and then the severity of these sorts of things and bring that down. And obviously trying to restrict vulnerable road users from these environments. Some really fascinating data that came through from one of the participants about cyclists on motorways in some of the, I think it was Gold Coast area. staggering. I didn't understand what's going on there. It needs a bit more investigation. But, you really would want to restrict any vulnerable road users. And if you do have breakdowns or vehicles wandering around, you'd want to manage the vehicles around that, identifying that you've got a vulnerable road user in the road environment, and then your speed should be coming down appropriately.
Ken, question here on what are your thoughts on emergency stopping lanes on motorways versus smart motorways with regular emergency stopping bays?
Yeah, no, it's this is a good question. Certainly, I think we're going to see more and more of that. It's just too attractive to utilise the emergency stopping lane as a running lane these days. Obviously, an emergency stopping lane provides a better alignment with safe system principles because you've got a lower likelihood of people rear-ending and the like, and a bit more buffer area for somebody if they are out of their vehicle or doing the like. So in order to sort of compensate for that, when you remove the emergency stopping lane or you provide bays, it's so essential to have that smart motorway, managed motorway operating effectively and really honing in on how those scenarios play out, how we can reduce that likelihood so, really significantly. And it may involve lots of behavioural change initiatives to drivers and education about how, what they should do and staying in the vehicle and, waiting for the vehicles to push them out or whatever it is that you've got in your setup. The safe system assessment methodology works perfectly well for motorways, and it provides some great insights into that. You can run the system, the matrix, you can run those questions, the qualitative questions, which will help you out. So good tool, and just run it as it is. We've done some for variable speed limits on motorways, some really early safe system assessments. That was years ago. Not quite the same as the ones that we're doing these days, but same principles applied. And just finally, major rural highways, full containment of barrier systems along these is what we're going to go. Really, we want to have the bumper bowling of roads because people are going to fall asleep, they're going to get distracted, they're going to leave the road. And they're going to hit stuff and they're going to roll over and they're going to get to the other carriageway. And we need to intervene and address the severity and get that severity score down. And the likelihood score as much as we can. Usually the likelihood score on these sorts of roads is actually quite low due to really good infrastructure, great geometric design, shoulders, often audio tactile, and we're just not addressing that severity for those smaller few that still do crash. And obviously the intersections on those, either grade separating, providing acceleration lanes and maybe U-turn facilities with acceleration lanes down the road. So you're getting a change in speed is low and the severity is low. Otherwise, other things to try to reduce the likelihood of crashes. But I think I've sort of lightly touched on all of those. I think you know the process. You'll be able to do that very well for any road environment. And of course, I mean, we're here to help and happy to send info, have a chat with you if you're doing a safe system assessment on something weird or unique. Maybe we've done one similar. Maybe I can just help you out, point you in some direction and stuff. I suggest you if you are on LinkedIn, you follow Safe System Solutions because we put out a lot of safe system snippets as we find bits of information on different topics, or we identify something, we put it out there so it's continuing your learning, and we'll let you know of other training courses available from ourselves or others that are relevant. But yeah, I'm very confident with this group. It's a great group, and I'm looking forward to marking your safe system assessments and getting you your certificate and helping you get out there and save lots of lives. Save lots more lives. You're already doing good stuff, but let's ramp it up a bit more. So Kathy, over to you to just tell everybody what needs to be done to finish off this course.
Yes, thank you, Ken. Just a quick follow-up question on the freeway one earlier. What about exposure to stationary vehicles? A stopping main lane might encourage people to stop for non-urgent issues.
Yeah, I mean, I think that that may factor in very slightly into your likelihood score. I'm not aware of research or the like into what people are stopping for and the frequency of stopping in comparing emergency stopping lanes with stopping bays. I think we'd be all going on gut feel on that, and I think our gut feel might be different. So I don't know. It probably needs a bit more thinking. I'm not sure I'm providing much help there. Others might have some ideas as well. All right. Over to you, Kathy. Just finish it off.
Thank you, Ken. So I've searched and found dwell on red snippet, lane width and road safety snippet, and that safe system in the planning process research, Australia's research report. So they're all available to you there. So what you need to do if you are still working through it is download the template, get to your site, write up your safe system report, PDF it, and add the submission here. It is due next Friday. That looks like a weekend of marking for Ken if you do get it by Friday afternoon. So make his weekend eventful. Once you've done that, and once it's been marked and you have completed all your quizzes, which there is a 10-question quiz today as well, then do provide us some feedback on this program. So there's a few very short questions here. So do let us know how you found it. And then your electronic version of your certificate will appear here as soon as basically all your quizzes have been done and your assignments are done and marked as well. We'll also post you a hard copy of your certificate as well as any prizes you've won, and that'll happen probably from week commencing the 31st of May or so after that. Stay in touch with us. So if you have questions or if you're having any issues with your assignment or anything like that, please email, call, etc. And if you don't quite get it right on your first go with your assignment, you do get an opportunity to resubmit. But again, just please stay in touch. If for any reason you can't get it in by next Friday, just drop me an email, let me know, and I'll just update the time frame for you. I think that's about it. Ken?
Yeah, well, I'll just say a final thank you to everybody. I know you're extremely busy, and it's always hard to find time to learn a new process. But you've done the hard yards now. Just finish off that assignment, and road safety is a wonderful opportunity to have some real public influence on people's health and well-being, and it can be an area that you can just be really proud to be involved in. So I know you're all passionate about it. So here's another opportunity for you to really make big changes. So thank you so much, and please do get in contact if you've got questions. But you've been a great group, and enjoy the weekend.
Thanks, Ken. Thanks, everyone.